Welcome back. So I'm wearing my Cthulhu hat because it kind of feels like the Destroyer of Worlds is amongst us in 2020, isn't it? And I want to talk about the salary cap. So because we're talking about where the NHL's at, because we're talking about what the owners are asking the NHL players to do, I want to take a look at this relationship. This has been a rocky relationship for a very, very, very long time. We're going back to, Ted Lindsay. So they've named an award after him. That's nice. He was the one that tried to form a union the first time, and the NHL punished him by getting him traded to Chicago. True story. Because he was spearheading the union proposals and trying to get a union going, they traded him out of Detroit. They traded him to Chicago to make him miserable. This is the league you're dealing with, and now the owners are not obviously the same ones that they were then, but owners they're definitely capable of, yes, some skullduggery. And yes, NHL players will have their doubts. And so when we lost the 04-05 season, which was, it sucked. And by the time they officially pulled the plug, most fans that I knew, and myself included, were saying, just end it. This is ridiculous. And it doesn't feel like we're there now. It doesn't. Because then it was just, there was no common ground at all. At least now we're seeing some semblance of common ground in that they're using the same terms. They're at least agreeing on the economics. And what ended up happening was, going into the 05 season where it returned, they agreed to a salary cap, which the players swore, and Bob Goodenow sat there and I will not agree to a cap. And then he had to. They had to. The owners basically said, we can sit out as long as you want. Their argument was they were spending 75% of their money on player wages. And they said, we can't afford this. Can't do this. It doesn't work. It's not a good business model. 75% of our money going to the players, leaving 25% to go to absolutely everything else in the organization. Eventually, the players said, all right. So it was a sliding scale that topped out at 57%. Started out at 54. It would get to 57%. So their first year, $39 million cap. The league made $2.27 billion. This was after, in 04-05, fans said, we're never coming back. No, we're not going to watch that again. They're greedy. The players are greedy. The owners are greedy. Everybody's greedy. We don't care. We're done. We're never coming back. They came back. They did. To the point where 06-07, the salary cap was at $44 million. So it went up $5 million the first year, which upset fans. Because as fans, we were told, hey, we've got to hold out because we're not making any money. And immediately the money starts going up. $2.44 billion in league revenues. 07-08, $50.3 million in a salary cap and $2.75 billion in revenues. The number keeps going up. Notice all the green on the board. You can see that it's green. There's one red. That's it. Everything else is green. $56.7 million, $2.82 billion in league revenues. $56.8 million, $2.93 billion in league revenues. $59.4 billion, $59.4 million, not billion, million. Get those wrong. Whoa. $3.09 billion. And then the last year before another stoppage, $64.3 million was the salary cap, $3.37 billion. The NHL and the owners said, this 57% doesn't work for us either. We want to roll it back to 50. The players, not happy, they got all upset, but eventually they signed. And so it works out to a drop to $60 million was the cap, $2.63 billion in league revenues, but 50% goes to the players. So they dropped to $60 million, which was still higher than the 2010-2011 salary cap, lower than 2011-2012. But then for 2013-2014, $64.3 million is the salary cap. The league's revenues were $3.7 billion. You know who gets the short end of the stick here? Fans. Fans do. This is a league that 38% of the revenues comes from tickets. From gate. It's a gate-driven league, 38.2%. So that means there's another 61.2% that's not from fans. Notice that in the recent talks of how much money the players would be guaranteed for this season, it's somewhere in the 60% range. Maybe 50. If there's no fans in attendance, right? So, and if it's a shortened season, even more so. So 64.3 million turns into 69 million in 2014-2015, 3.98 billion dollars in league revenue. 2015-2016, the fans are up to, or the players are up to 71.4 million. The fans are out. The $4.1 billion total. Notice it goes for 4.43, 4.86, 5.09. The league in 2018-2019 made $5.09 billion. The players' salary caps went up to $79.5 million, and GMs are spending because the salary cap's going to keep going up. Coming into this year, the players and the owners sit down and go, wait a minute. This isn't working. The escrow number keeps going up because the cap keeps going up, and yet the revenues weren't equaling what the cap was. The cap was being elevated a little bit too much. So the players agreed to only a $2 million raise in the salary cap. Just $81.5 million. Now, we don't know what the league made, but we know that the NHL coming into this past year was already talking to the players about escrow. The escrow was a problem. The players didn't like it because while the cap was going up, so was their escrow. So here's your $10 million contract. By the way, we need to claw back about 14% of that because we don't know. And escrow guards the league against a shortfall. So it's, you give me $20, and you say, you know what, I'm going to give you $20 for your work because that's what it's worth, but I'm going to hold back $3 because I need to find out how much money I'm making to find out whether or not I can afford to give you the rest. I'm oversimplifying. Basically, league revenues, if they fall short, the escrow money stays with the league. Sometimes the players get it 2 years later. Sometimes it's the next year. It is kind of a mess of a system, and it needs to be worked on. It needs to be that as soon as possible after the end of a season, that escrow money is decided, and the league will give that back. Keep in mind, this season, the NHL players decided to take their last paycheck, which they held on to for months, and they decided to put all of it into escrow because they knew we're not seeing this money later. If we try to get this money now, it's just going to get clawed back from us. The agreement right now is that the salary cap is $81.5 million for the 2020-2021 season. It's artificial. And I think the players know that's an artificial number because escrow's high. There's the deferral as well. And the escrow is going to be adjusted. The deferral's going to be adjusted because it has to be. What we're dealing with this year is unprecedented. It's never happened in the salary cap in the modern era. What we're dealing with now is something we haven't dealt with globally in over 100 years. And back during the Spanish flu in 1918, it's not like the league had, big salary cap issues. But interestingly enough, the NHL did start out with salary cap back in its beginnings. And then as it got bigger and made more money, they didn't bother. The issue really is simple. The players have gone from a $39 million cap 15 years ago to an $81.5 million cap now. Now, I agree with people who say that your entry-level contract has not gone up to the extent that the big money contracts have. Your top guy can make 20% of the salary cap. The most money you can spend on one player is 20% of the cap. So when I see people say, oh, this player's really greedy, and then you look, and at the time they signed a contract, it was 11% of the salary cap, and he could argue he was worth 20%. I have a hard time with the greedy argument. And especially when he could have got more money elsewhere. But this is where it gets kind of dicey, because we don't know how long this is going to go until. So for the owners right now, it's a matter of, okay, we're going to lose a lot of money. And we've already asked the players to take a pay cut, but our revenues are going to get hit again. In order to make all this work going forward, I don't know if there needs to be some kind of complete change in how the economy works within the NHL. But the amount of financial hit that pro sports are taking in general in North America, it's huge. And so for the NHL to find a way to make this work and to make this exist, the argument that I made before they signed this extension was, I thought that compliance buyouts made sense, and I thought a drop in the cap made sense. I thought the NHL players coming out and saying that, well, we've agreed to a 15% drop league-wide to help, during the pandemic. Just a 15% drop across the board, and allowing for compliance buyouts. I thought that would make some sense. And then when they said, no, we're going to go ahead and we're going to stay at 81.5 million, I thought, okay. Because again, we've seen other leagues, and I know people say, well, the NBA took a salary cut, but they make more money. Yes, but they still took a cut. It still took a cut. When all of this really hit in March and the NHL shut down, I watched as revenues on my channel dropped about 60%, even though I was still doing the same job and my view counts were relatively the same. The income on the channel dropped by 60%. And it was just, that's how ad rates work. And for 2 months, it was just nothing. There was nothing there. And when I'm looking at the numbers now, usually at this time of year, you're seeing your best numbers all year. I'm not seeing that because, again, we're dealing with an economic slowdown. And advertising money is not what it was in previous years. So that's a balancing act that's going on everywhere. And so pro sports, you're not going to get the kind of sponsorship deals you normally would because companies aren't spending the kind of money on advertising they normally do. There may not be a demand for their product. There may not be a demand for what they provide at all at this stage in the game. So, I mean, if you sell alcohol, you might be making record profits. Sure, I would think in 2020 that's fantastic. But and they're a big sponsor for pro sports. And Doritos, come on, Doritos and beer, right? That's got to be huge right now. Although you don't have hockey to watch while you're eating and drinking it, so it is a totally different economic landscape. I've really wondered, like, throughout all this, did the NHL and the NHLPA need to figure out something else until this has passed? Some other way to do business? Are they trying to find a way to do business using a model of 50% that doesn't work because we're in an unprecedented situation right now economically? The problem is it requires trust. If you're going to sit down and enter into an economic agreement, let's say you're buying a house, but you don't trust the bank, and you don't really trust the guy you're buying the house off of, good chance you back out, right? And or you're buying a vehicle and you ask the guy who's selling you the car, so has ever been in an accident? And he pauses 10 seconds before saying no. Why would you ask that? Good chance it's been in an accident. And mistrust is formed. This is a relationship that's had mistrust. As recently as 2012, we've seen it blow up into a full-blown lockout situation. We averted a lockout to get the Stanley Cup awarded in the summer. The NHL and the NHLPA need to figure this out, because if they don't, it's going to be egg on the face of both the league and the players. The argument of, well, who are you in favor of? Well, I think that the owners are already taking the financial hit, and the players are going to get the financial hit one way or the other, because again, I don't think it's a model that works right now. In a healthy economy where you got full buildings and everything's going great, sure, yeah. You want an argument for why we get more than one run of retro reverse jerseys? This might be it. Because when you buy those jerseys, that money goes to the league and to the players. Merchandise, I'm pretty sure, is a 50-50 split. So if you're out there buying those, you might be helping out a little bit at a time where both the league and the players need it. And again, they're not hard up, they're not hard done by, and I don't think anybody's trying to make that argument. Nobody's arguing that anybody needs pity. Nobody's arguing that anybody needs to be treated with some kind of special kid gloves in this situation. It's just the economics. How do you make it work? Because this could go on until 2024. This could go on for quite a while. That deferral of money, it could be years. And for players who also have mortgages, they have kids, they have bills, they have things they need to pay. Knowing how far this is going is part of your financial planning. When March hit and everything fell apart, and then things started to get better as we get into May and into June and into July, yeah, the idea of we've got to start investing, we've got to start getting ready for, the next time something happens. That became much more key for me and my thinking, and for my wife as well. We started saying, we've really got to make sure we're protected. Players right now may be looking at a situation where this could go on for years, and they need to have some kind of understanding of where this is going to go from here. So I understand the players all of a sudden saying, wait a minute, now you want more money? But we've just, and for these guys now, they've got to talk to their wives, financial advisors, whoever, their agents, whoever. It's all right, I got to figure this out. And there's a shock factor. There's a, I can't believe this is happening again factor. And if they don't figure it out, then no, we don't get a 2020-21 season. I'm not worried about, and I keep seeing people say, well, there's going to be lockdowns and shutdowns and lockdown. Yeah, we went through that in March. That's not why the NHL necessarily shut down. The NHL shut down because we were going through this unprecedented situation, and they just shut it down. When they came back in July, it's not like there weren't still restrictions in place. And so I fully expect that states, provinces will figure out a way to accommodate the NHL, because it's good for the economy. It's good for the economy. And I think having sports back on some level, whether it's football, baseball, and I'm just talking North America, I think it's been good emotionally, mentally for people. Because we talk about all the economic side of it, but there's a mental aspect to this too. There are a lot of kids right now who aren't playing hockey. And they're not, that's their drive, that's their desire, that's what they want to do. That's what their desired career path is. I had an argument on Twitter with a guy who kept saying, well, who cares about them? Who cares about the players? Who cares if they don't get to play hockey? There's a pandemic. And my answer was, right, but the idea of these kids being, physically fit, and this is the career they want to follow, that's not nothing. It's not nothing to say sports matters to people. And it's something that I said back in March. And there were some that tried grilling me in the comments for it. How selfish and how short-sighted. If we don't want to look at the mental health impacts of 2020, okay. But it's there. And the NHL and hockey and a lot of people I've seen tons of posts lately. I miss hockey. I really miss hockey. I do too. We had a month and a half of hockey since March. The first step is figuring out the economics. The second step is working on a way to bring the game back as safely as possible, losing as little money as possible. Means a shortened season. Might mean bubbles to start the season for the first, say, month. But they figure it out. All right, here you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And I really, truly believe this will work itself out. It's just a matter of figuring out how much. If I had a chance to be in the room and help talk it through, yeah, I'd do that. But it's not going to happen. Anyways, I do wish both sides the best, because it does suck when you have no hockey, and 2004-2005 was it's just kind of sucked. I've said before, if we don't get the season, then I'll dive in and cover the other sports on the Entertainment Guy channel in depth. I'll do power rankings for the NBA. I'll do power rankings for Major League Baseball if need be. But I'd like to be doing NHL power rankings as soon as possible and discussing, what's happened in sports. That kind of thing. And that sport being hockey. All right. Thank you guys so much for all your support throughout 2020. And yeah, let's hope that the cooler heads prevail. Thanks for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.